to Uncommon Women, a podcast that provides a platform for women of all walks of life to share their upbringings, life lessons learned, experiences, and journeys to come. Uncommon Women speaks on topics that can relate to all women. We share, we listen, we laugh, we cry, and we empower each other to be the best uncommon woman that they can be. Ultimately, we are cultivating a global movement of women supporting women. Women supporting entrepreneurship, relationships, self-love, and so much more. We inspire each other to make an impact on this world for the better. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Uncommon Women. Now, finally, grab a seat, get comfortable, and hear from your wonderful hosts, Shanira and Jenny Lee. Thank you, kings and queens, for tuning in to Uncommon Women. I'm Shanira.
And I'm Jenny Lee.
And today we have an amazing guest speaker that's going to come on by the name of Rachel Brownstein. She talks openly about her experience working in the sex industry and the hope of educating people about the reality of sex work and displaying many of the misconceptions people have in that industry. So before we get into today's topic, Jenny Lee is going to open us up with a bio in regards to Rachel.
Rachel Brownstein is a public speaker and the face of YouTube vegan cooking channel Auntie Rachel's Chaotic Kitchen. Rachel loves to speak openly about her experience working in the sex industry and educating, and also in the reality of giving others the reality of sex work and the misconceptions people have.
So thank you, Rachel, so much for tuning in with us on Uncommon Women. Before we get into today's detail, can you tell us a little bit about your life and how was it growing up?
It was good. It was kind of a very normal life, very loving household, full of encouragement and positivity. Yeah, very typical, I suppose.
That's awesome. So let's get into the good gems for today's episode. Let's go ahead and speak into your experience in working in the sex industry.
Sure. So I was working in restaurants, a minimum wage, and getting work to the bone and paid peanuts, and thought there has to be a better way of going about this, but with a minimal level of education on paper. You're kind of limited on your earning potential. So my mind went to sex work. So I started I did escorting first. So in-call prostitution, for want of a better phrase. And it was fine. It was very unremarkable, which is odd when I reflect back on it. But we're going back 20 years almost, maybe 23, 24 years, something. No, 17, 18 years. But there wasn't enough work to get me out of the restaurants, which is what my whole plan had been, my whole game plan. Right. So I started lap dancing. From there, I went to nude modeling, and then from there got scouted by like a porn mag. Got taken to London for a shoot. Met the photographer, was friends with the porn director, and said, if you ever want to do films, let me know and I'll hook the two of you up. And I thought, well, I've done the escorting already and didn't hate myself afterwards. So yeah, let's try it, see what happens. So I did, and I got paid on my first ever shoot, got handed a stack of £50 notes, which is the highest denomination in British money, and had an amazing weekend, just a lot of fun, laughter, just feeling very comfortable and taken care of in many ways. And just thought, yeah, this is something I want more of. And you know, it was the equivalent of, I think, like a week's wages at the time for 2 days' work. I thought, yeah, that suits me quite well for now. And then because I was born in the States, I can work over in America, whereas a lot of British girls can't because you need certain types of ID. So I started flying out to LA, spending like a month or two out there, coming home for a few months and just traveling, commuting transglobally. And I had fun, but I had, more importantly, I had freedom and choice and kind of control over my own life. And in the last couple of years, it's turned out that I've got something called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is it's a systemic medical disorder that affects everything, but causes a lot of joint pain, chronic fatigue, breathing problems, gastric problems, mental health problems. And I kind of realized that this whole time I was trying to fit into 9-to-5 jobs or hospitality jobs, and I was trying to do it in a body that couldn't physically take it so well. Whereas the sex work, if I was feeling if I was feeling unwell on a particular day, I could easily say, right, well, I'm not going to work if it came down to that. So it just fit my lifestyle so much easier, and I got to meet different people from all different walks of life who all had very different reasons for being in the industry. You meet people who are writing a sociology paper, someone wanted to start their own business, someone just wanted to have sex, somebody else wanted to earn money. And that was my motivation, was the money, really. But you get to see all these amazing locations, travel the world. So there were many positives to it. And, there's also negatives that go with that. But I think a lot of the negatives started coming afterwards, once I decided to leave the industry and retire and just go back to being Rachel. That's when the issues with people tracking me down online, doxing, and making playlists on YouTube with my stage name and my real name. So, and I'm an actor as well. So anytime you try and search for me, you will quickly find the porn. And it's as if fans don't want you to climb outside of the box that they've put you in. You're just like, no, get back in that box, right, you little whore. And they get so mad that you're not that person. I've had Facebook messages that would be, if you put it end to end, would be several meters long, of just guys trying to start a conversation, but using my stage name. It's like, but you're sending a message to the profile of Rachel Brownstein. So who do you think you are to address me as my character? I'm a human being. So that's sort of led me then on to wanting to speak more openly about it, because I've been fired twice because customers or what have you have recognized me, and the company didn't want, bringing the company name into disrepute, and it's completely legal for that to happen. Wow. And my view is, if you want people to leave sex work, you have to then protect them, because they're just going to keep ending up back in sex work if they cannot, if I get sacked as a waitress because a customer, so it's like, it's okay for men to masturbate, but not for women to generate the income. And that to me just is just hypocrisy at its highest order. So I'm hoping that by speaking out and trying to humanize and just remind people that it's entertainment, that it's a very fantasy world, and that the people that are doing these acts on film are still human beings, and we still have the same requirement of resources. I need to be able to earn rent, to put, to house myself, to feed myself. And if you're preventing me from working, what do you think is going to happen? And it happens to so many people. I know someone who was training to be a paramedic, got recognized, got booted off the course. And it's primary school teachers. It's just, the society wants to paint us with this brush and brand us for the rest of our lives because we dared to do something outside of the mainstream. And that's what brought me to Uncommon Women.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very powerful. I think a lot of people focus so much on everyone's past, and it's like, even if you move past your past, someone's always trying to trigger you or speak on things that you're no longer are. And that can diminish your emotions and your feelings in regards to moving forward. So we appreciate you having the courage to come on and share about this, as I'm sure a lot of people has judged you. So this is something that may be hard for you. I'm not sure, but
it's always a terrifying prospect. And I did an interview a few months ago, it would have been now. And up to that date, I hadn't ever made mention of porn on any of my social media. And I thought, right, well, I've done this interview and I'm going to be promoting it. And there are people on my accounts that don't know. So I kind of outed myself. And, I was expecting a a heck of a backlash, and I was kind of catastrophizing what was going to happen, and instead I got an outpouring of love, and just sat in tears, just reading messages from fans or just from friends, just saying, what you're doing is brave, and it's inspiring that you're trying to make a difference in the world. And that is, don't get me wrong, I'd love to earn an income from it, but to be able to generate an income for myself at the same time as providing knowledge and wisdom to other people, that's quite a powerful feeling for me. That kind of thing fires me up.
And
it's needed. It definitely is needed, So viewers, if you guys have any questions for her as well, you're more than welcome to drop it in the comments. And as we finish our questions, we'll be more than happy to get to your questions as well.
I love that, how you didn't allow it to dictate you or your life, even though, you were being judged, and you just kept going. That's the fire in you.
Yeah.
I love it.
The only options I saw were just take it on the chin and deal with it, or cut yourself off social media. And because I'm an actor, I can't not have a social media. So I was like, right, well, I've just got to keep powering through it, and just, don't let them see you cry, and don't let them realize that feeling of dread in the pit of your stomach when so-and-so wants to send you a message. Like, oh God, what's this one going to say? But now I've kind of flipped it, and now that I'm being open, I can start posting all of these things, like all the Instagram messages I get, I start posting them to Twitter without redaction. Don't cross me, because I will expose you.
That's right. She's going to expose you.
Can you speak on the reality of porn versus real life intimacy and relationships?
The two things are just, maybe diametrically opposed. One is so manufactured, and the other one should be completely natural and moment to moment, whereas porn has to be engineered almost, because you've got a camera crew. And I should say I retired about 11 years ago, so I'm sure there's been differences and advancements in the way films are made. And when I first started, it was more DVD. You've got a bigger crew, and then it started with the internet sites. It would be more gonzo, so it's the one guy with a camera kind of thing. So my knowledge is somewhat outdated, but so you've got 12 people standing around while you're having sex, all looking at the watches. We're in LA, can't have the air conditioning on because it messes up the mic. So, and it's like 45, I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit. So like it's 100 degrees inside, and you're caked in makeup, but you still got to look sexy. It's like, I just want to sit in the fridge. And it's, and then you have these conversations before the shoot, and you show each other your STI and HIV tests, and you say, what do you like? What don't you like? What should I, okay, well, don't touch my nipples. Okay, well, you can squeeze my testicles really hard, but if I squeeze your shoulder, let go, because it's too much. So you're having these very upfront and frank, direct conversations. Whereas, intimacy is much more, I don't know, you get that instinct with a partner, and you learn, you develop your own language together, or you understand the meaning in each other's meaningful glances, and you don't have to pretend. It should just be natural. Whereas the film is, it's no more real than, I don't know, Harry Potter is an honest depiction of a high school. It's very amplified, and because we don't want real life, that's same with television, even reality TV. That's very scripted and very heavily edited to make it look as if certain things have happened when nothing like that ever did happen. So it's entertainment, and I guess it just inherently has differences. But even though you're doing the same physical act, the motivations and the desires behind it, I'm moaning because I'm like, I'm going to pay my taxes today.
It's entertainment. I feel you.
So it's different, even though the viewers hopefully never see that, because if you're doing a good job, you're pulling them into the fantasy, and you're making them believe what you're selling.
Wow.
And in the moment of recording, does your mind race? Is there things that's going through your mind? It's like, I can't wait until this over, or are you able to actually enjoy it when you're in the midst of it?
It's so varied, and it's a job. So it's the same as any other job I've had. Like, there are days that are amazing, and also as a waiter, I'd have great days where I've got fantastic customers that you have, great rapport with. And then there are other times when they're saying they're allergic to salt and, you just have these awful days. So it's very much the same in porn. And sometimes you have a real connection with your screen partner, and then other times it's like, oh, I'm really going to earn this money today. I'm going to have to dig deep and really pull this one out of the bag, which I guess is what makes me a good actor. It's about, getting past the revulsion. And I quickly understood that it's porn, not prom. So it doesn't matter if you're attracted to the person. You've got to pretend, you've got to sell it that you are. But then it makes it even better when you are attracted to them and there is that natural chemistry. You can see that on screen, I think.
Okay. You spoke a lot about, jobs and how you've been let go, and your jobs based off, your career. Does any of your family or friends ever judge you based on your past as well, or while you were in the process of doing it?
No, I think the friends at the time were just kind of like, well, that's a crazy thing to do, but all right. Like, it was just, and then they'd enjoy the mad stories that I'd come home with. Parents didn't like it, which is understandable and totally fair enough, really. Yeah, and now in later life, if there is any judgment, I tend to cut those people out of my life because, I'm 41 and I don't have time for the toxicity, and I don't have time for people assigning these values to me that don't belong to me. That's your own preconceptions and that's your moral values. But I pay my bills. I give charitably when I can. I'm a good person. I will listen to you. I will help you. I'm very open and quite non-judgmental in a way that I think a lot of people I've spoken to anyway, and especially men, they say, I feel able to talk to you about things that I've never really discussed before. You seem to provide somehow this safe environment, and I don't feel like I'm going to be struck down, or there's not going to be this backlash or judgment or any of these things that I guess particularly men are made to feel. You've got to keep all of your emotions inside because otherwise you're weak. I think there's that. So it's it's interesting and staggering in equal parts that people make these judgments about me, about sex workers as a wider whole. They were just bad, terrible people that were all broken and abused and abusive. And it's like, okay, there is that. There are people like that, but name me an industry that doesn't have its abusers and doesn't have its damaged people and its exploited people. That's capitalism, unfortunately.
Okay. As being a porn star, what type of things did you experience or go through?
So it becomes, after a time, it just becomes very normal, and kind of the things that I'd come back from the States and I'd catch up with friends, and they'd just be, the jaws would drop open. But to me, it just became very run of the mill, and it's like, well, I just went to work. So things start losing importance, and then memories get a bit blurry. I remember one of the most memorable experiences in porn. We went out to shoot in the Florida Everglades, and we were staying in this compound of a guy who bred animals for Hollywood. And I'd finished my scene, had shot a couple of scenes during the day. I'd had an anal sex scene, so I was finally getting to eat for the first time in 24 hours, eating a pizza. And this guy was like, do you want to see something really cool? And brought me 2 baby marmoset monkeys, just holding these monkeys like, oh, wow. So it's just, everything is very heightened and surreal in many ways. But at the same time, it's not, because it's a very primal physical thing that you're doing. Right. And you're very kind of in touch with your body. And, you've got to be so careful of not hurting yourself in many ways. So, you've got to listen to, this guy keeps hitting my uterus and I have to film the next 5 days in a row. So I need to do something about this. I need to change the angle. I need to change the curve of my back so it's not hitting so much.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to be so mindful of what's going on internally. And and you just kind of, but then I fell in love with the performance, I think. And, I'd get people writing to me saying, I just love the energy that you bring. And to provide escapism for somebody is quite a nice thing. I like that. And that's the same with the cooking videos. I've had fans who have followed me from porn to cooking. They say, watching you in the kitchen just calms me down so much. I just sit and watch your videos and you're so relaxing. I'm like, that is an amazing thing to hear, just to be able to, especially in the middle of
connect with them too, right?
Yeah, and in the middle of a pandemic where the world has gone insane and there's just flaming dung heaps everywhere you look, to be able to just provide this little chink of brightness or calm or quiet, just to do that for somebody else, I find it very fulfilling.
What has the adult femme industry taught you about sex?
We're all very weird about it. And I don't know if we necessarily should be. I think centuries, millennia even, of societal conditioning has a lot to answer for. Women's bodies have been controlled, our sexuality has been suppressed. And it has taught me to be in touch with myself and make sure I get my own needs met. And not to perform for my partners, and if they're doing something that doesn't feel great, it's like, say something, or just, gently, hey, do this instead. And to have conversations and be open, and what do you like? What are you into? And, that kind of thing. And just being more open and thinking more laterally about the world as a whole, not just about sex, but just about many things. And people's motivations for doing things are so different and varied, and that's what's beautiful about the humans. We've got such different stories and different things that fire us up. Let's stop trying to be the same as each other, and let's stop controlling other people's bodies. Like, just do what is good for you, as long as safety is a concern, as long as everyone's being respected and within their own boundaries and no one's stepping outside of boundaries. Let's just leave other people's bodies and uteruses especially alone.
I like that.
So what are the most damaging misconceptions about sex work?
We're all stupid. I've had a lot of people say, oh wow, you're a lot more intelligent than I thought you would be.
Wow.
That's not the compliment you think it is, but okay. That we're all abuse victims. The only you must have been beaten or raped or something in your childhood. That's why you're doing this, because only a damaged person would do this. And I think that's one that it strips away autonomy. I think when you start framing people as victims, it's like, no, I made a decision to do this and to follow this path, and it was a business decision. I was an entrepreneur who marketed my sexuality and access to my sexuality as my projected sexuality. That's why I had a stage name. It was just a character I created who would just do these insane things on camera, but then go home and play Guitar Hero. It's just an illusion, really. And I think one that's quite common is, and I can't comment on for women, but for men, I would find you'd go on dates and they'd find out what I did for a living, and then there was an automatic assumption that we'd have sex. Like, why would you think that? It's like, well, because you're a sex worker. I'm like, oh, so you're going to pay me? I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I do beg your pardon. Where should I send my invoice? It's and then I suppose as well, like having male friends and then their partners being really uncomfortable, assuming we were going to have sex because and I'm like, I don't want him. And if I did, I would have had him years ago. Stop. Stop thinking I'm a threat just because, because I have sex for money doesn't mean I want your man. No.
Speaking on that, has that impacted your relationships with men and dating? Is it something that you tell someone if you're like getting serious, or is it just something that you don't, or it just pops up, like how does that typically go?
So when I was in the industry, I mean, I didn't have a relationship for 12 years, partly because I was traveling so much and it's hard to have anything serious really when you're spending so much time away. It's just how that kind of, the conversation has to come out, because I never wanted to not tell somebody and then them go looking for something to, five knuckles shuffle to. And then suddenly it's, oh, that's my girlfriend. I just don't think that's a very fair thing to do to somebody who you have feelings for. I think that's a little bit. I understand people's motivations for doing it, so I wouldn't, I try not to be judgmental on that. But for me personally, it's an action that I wouldn't really want to do. So I was always very upfront, and a lot of them would say, "Oh, yeah, no, I could never go out with you because what would I tell my friends?" Well, wow, okay, all right, so fine. And then more recently, in the last couple of years or so, because it's become more of my life, part of my life again, speaking about it and writing my book, it's on the forefront of my mind. So I'm like, do you know what? I'm just going to probably first date tell them, because I don't want to spend time with this person and then waste it, because my time and my energy is so very precious to me at the moment that I don't want to waste it on mediocre men that can't handle my truth.
Okay. I like that.
That's good.
That is. Yeah, I like that. Can you assist or help us educate the young adults on the differences between relationship intimacy and porn?
Yeah, so I touched on it briefly. The porn is it's just not real life, and I know it looks real, but it's not. You put a camera in front of anything. Like with my YouTube channel. So I try and show everything. I try not to hide too much of my mistakes, because I think people will learn better by, I see when she made that mistake and she fixed it by doing this. I think that can be very helpful for people. But even then, the video I edited today was 2.5 hours long, and I've got that down to 25 minutes. And that still will go through multiple iterations of editing. So probably 15, 20 minutes. So, and applying that to porn, you can be filming. I think the longest I ever spent on set was 13 hours, and I was having sex for 7 of those.
Wow.
It's physically punishing, it's a lot. So you're seeing a very polished in many ways, even if it's kind of rough gonzo style, it's still cut and run through processes, and it's had lots of tweaks and all sorts of stuff added to it. So trying to expect that in your own bedroom is just unrealistic, I think. And I don't necessarily know if we should be wanting that kind of thing. And do you need to be having sex in a pile driver position? Because it's not pleasurable for the woman. You're running the risk of breaking your neck, and it's hot and sweaty and unnecessary. So maybe let's not do that and just leave it to the pros, and think of film stars more of more like athletes, maybe. It's kind of, they're at the pinnacle of that act, and it's fine. They can do it at that level, and you just enjoy it. But don't expect that same level of physical appearance, men and women, because obviously it's such a physical job that you have to be physically fit a lot of the time, especially for the men. They have to be quite athletic to be able to do all the lifting. So, and also the level of grooming, so expecting girls to be perfectly made up after it's like, well, there was a makeup artist who would come in every 15 minutes and touch things up. So your girl's going to get sweaty if you're doing a good job. And you should love it. You shouldn't be like, oh, that's disgusting. You should be like, nah, I made a sweat. That's amazing. Because that's when you're doing it right. So and then again, taking those, perhaps the consent conversations that happen before a scene, maybe that needs to be more adopted widely amongst couples, whether that's a long-term thing or even just a one-night stand or a friends with benefit kind of relationship. Let's just start speaking a bit more frankly with each other. And surely then I think the sex will get better because you've got that communication and you're both there, the enjoyment of each other, and it's not quite as performative or, just masturbating inside a wet, warm hole. It's more of a, I think for me, sex is better when everything's engaged and everything's kind of fired up rather than it just being a physical thing.
Okay. So it's staged, people. Don't try a lot of the stuff.
And like expecting anal sex and then being horrified that there's feces. Like, what do you think is going to happen if you put something in something that's meant, other things are meant to come out of? Like, it's not. It's just
the scenes are cut out, which people don't know that.
Exactly.
And they don't see so for me, if I had, say my call time was 9 a.m. for an anal scene, I would stop eating at 7 o'clock the night before. And then I would take too many Imodium in the morning. And then I'd spend an hour cleaning my bowels with several enema bags. There is a lot of prep. And then, you've got to stretch and everything before the scene. Otherwise it hurts. So you've got to, it takes a lot of work to do these things that just look, effortlessly, I'll just stick that in there and that's fine. That's how it happens.
Right.
So it's an illusion and it's a confection. It's so it's just, let's stop being so I don't know, ridiculous with each other. Let's have more fun and playfulness and respect and passion for each other.
Yes.
I think, in my experience, sex has always been better when there's a meeting of minds as well as a clashing of bodies.
I agree.
So do I.
One of the viewers has asked a question and they said, how do you stay so strong?
Belligerence, therapy, video games. And I'm being slightly facetious, but things have gotten rough over the years, and I've had some really bad depressive episodes, kind of kicked off by one thing or another. Like when I never fully made the decision to leave the industry. It just happened that I hadn't been to LA in months, but it kind of triggered a depression in that, where am I going to earn this amount of money from without a qualification? And education never really suited me wonderfully well. So it brings not an existential crisis, but there is this like, what am I going to do? How am I going to cope with this? How am I going to manage life again as a civilian? It's a bit jarring to have to, and then you walk into restaurant, you finally get yourself a normal job, and then everyone's staring at you and like, oh my God, that's the porn star I was telling you about. It's like, I've got to prepare for all of this again. And it's but having, I guess, resilience, and that maybe that's come with age. I don't know if that's something that's I've just picked up along the way, and kind of thought, don't let grind you down. You just got to keep pushing past it and find a goal or a target or a motivation, something to work towards, and to keep an eye, when everything's pulling you back, just keep looking ahead.
You mentioned earlier when you said how you couldn't, because since you're an actor, you couldn't stay away from social media. You can't. Did it ever cross your mind to just hide away from everything at one point?
Yeah. I had is this something I need to do in order to get peace and to be left alone?
Okay.
But I just, I don't want to be driven into hiding by idiots.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to allow somebody to have that much impact when they're just, if their sole joy in life is to make other people's lives miserable, that's on them, and as long as I can hold my head up and keep pushing through and moving forward and doing the things I want to do and controlling things in the way I want to do them. Yeah, you've got to just, it's hard though, but you do have to just ignore the haters and just kind of try and maybe empathize a little bit or sympathize. Like, these people are clearly, they've had something going off in their lives. They feel less than or inferior, or there's something going on to create this level of bile within them. It's not easy. It's a lot of the time you just want to rage tweet and
and go back and forth like, you don't know me.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, but I guess that's a sign I'm growing up, because I'm deleting them and just moving on. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm an adult now.
Yeah, that's too much energy to be putting in that. Right. Too much energy to be putting in that. You just cut them off. There you go.
Right. Yeah. So you have your vegan channel, which is amazing. I eat, but I'm sure it's amazing. Where does your inspiration come from? Is it from cooking, or is it from video games? I see you like video games. Is it where does your inspiration come from?
So I went vegan just over 3 years ago, and before that, I've always been a bit of a chuck a load of stuff in a pot and see what happens. Like, I'm that kind of cook. And Mum told me a few months ago that as a kid, there was this cake that I used to like making, and I made it like as this really complex James Beard sponge. You have to like separate eggs and stuff. And she said, it's the first thing you ever baked on your own. And even then you were trying different ingredients. You were substituting things in the recipe. So I guess I've always had this thing there. But then when I removed animal products from my diet, suddenly I was on this quest to find textures and flavors that I was missing from meat. Because I loved meat, and I love butter and I love eggs and love it. But I hit that point and I was like, I can't justify this anymore, knowing what's happening. And I'm paying money into this industry that's just, I can't justify it to myself, and I feel really uncomfortable with myself after doing it. So, okay, what I'm going to do? I was like, well, I'll make a pie out of a sweet potato and make some fudge out of a sweet potato. And so sometimes it's as simple as I'll go in the cupboard for something and something else will fall out at my head. I'm like, oh, that might work. Oh, okay. Or, I kind of tried. I made apple butter for the first time. It's not really a thing in the UK, but I think I'd had it in the States years ago. And so I made that, and then that started sparking off ideas. So I've just been trying all these different fruit butters, and then, okay, what can I make to go with the butter? Reverse engineer it. And then the other day I made like a grapefruit hot and sour stir fry sauce. And that was just because I was like, I'm going to do a stir fry sauce. How can I make, and I love grapefruit, and okay. And it just, I'm quite playful, I think, with food, and because I at least have a slightly, I've gotten to grips with a lot of ingredients and pretend, that's the property of that. So if I need something to thicken, I can go, and I have that kind of knowledge. So it's provided a good baseline of fun and mad ideas. I'll sit up in bed at 2 a.m. like, oh my God, I know what I'm going to do. And then what will I do? I'm getting really excited about it, and it fires me up. And I think I started it in October, so mid-pandemic, and I'd started cooking as a way of coping with what was going on, because we were in full lockdown in the UK.
Okay.
Leave your house, and it became a lot to deal with psychologically, and seeing the death toll rising and what was happening in the world. It was so dark and distressing, and seeing what the doctors and nurses were having to deal with, and all healthcare workers, what they were being put through on a date. You know, it just gets a lot. So I started cooking. I was like, right, I need something to focus my attention. And it became, I think it was like an outlet that I could control. So it was like, I decide what's going to happen. I decide what's going in this bowl. I decide what temperature is going in the oven. Nobody else has a say in this. It's all me. And then I take pictures and put on social media, and friends are like, why do you have a YouTube channel? I was like, why don't I have a YouTube channel? Okay. All right. So yeah, it's kind of become this whole thing that, I don't know, without the pandemic, I don't know if it would have happened. So it's funny how these things turn out. But, you know, I get, you know, it's mostly guys that interact in the comments on YouTube, and they're like, oh, you know, you're the only person that could ever make me try vegan food. So like, whatever works. You know, that's my brand of activism. Like, you know, I won't tell you how wrong meat is. I will show you how good plants are. That's the way I like doing things. It's surprising, and you know, seeing what you can. The things you can create. So I'm at the moment, I kind of create recipes in my head, and I bake it in my mind, and then what? And so there's a drink over here called Lilt, like a soft drink, and I don't know what the closest would be in the States, but it's pineapple and grapefruit soda. And I made a custard powder and made grapefruit custard with it a while ago. And I was like, oh, I wonder if that would work as a pastry custard, you know, like make a pastry and make this custard inside, like a creme patissiere. And then I was like, oh, I could, and then I could put pineapple in that. Oh, and then I could put brown sugar on that and blowtorch it. Oh, and I can make the pastry out of coconut. And it just becomes this thing in my mind that I have to then do, otherwise it will not leave me alone. It's like, Rachel, make me.
You're supposed to make me. What are you doing? Right.
So, all right, I'll make you so you can shut up and leave me alone at 3 a.m.
I'm getting the understanding of why you named it chaotic when you use the word chaotic. So like, I'm thinking here, like, you know, she's like, yeah, well, I put this together, I put that. And I'm like, that's a lot together. So now I see where you got the name chaotic with it. I like that. I really like that.
Yeah, it's kind of, as I was editing, it just became, you know, I don't plan anything. I just start filming, turn the camera on, see what happens. But then, like, so I made this chocolate and chestnut chocolate and chestnut sweet potato tart for Christmas. Ooh. My oven died in the middle of it. Just one thing after the next, all went wrong. And it's just something dies in my, you know, some appliance or another dies at least once a month, you know. It's just, but then it's about sidestepping it and then kind of rolling with the punches and like, okay. And it's not polished, it's not clean, it's not planned and precise. It's very just bosh it on and see what happens. And kind of learn, you know, it's like the first time often that I'll do something. So if something goes wrong, I'll explain what I think has happened and how I think you could fix it. Right. And again, I think when I watch TV cooks, they just put this in. I'm like, okay, yeah, but why are you doing that? What is that bringing to the dish? Why? So I try and do that as well. I try and explain, well, this is a thickening agent, and you know, and this is a rising agent, or you know, you need to balance the heat with some sweetness, and you know, just always try and you know, and explain, describe why I'm doing things. And if I can't, I'll apologize. You know, I don't know why I'm putting this in here, but I am. Sorry. Sometimes it's just instinctive. But yeah, it's just trying to be just approachable, you know, because I want people to think, look, if this woman can do all can create that amount of havoc and still have a tasty dish, maybe I can have a go at that, you know? She can do it. I can do it.
So do I see a cookbook in the near future? Is that what you're reaching for?
Yeah, it would be a lot of fun, I think, the process of it. And like I would love to, you know, how you plan things in your mind and, well, how would that look? You know, like I've planned my kitchen of my dreams in my head. But yeah, so a cookbook, I think it would be fun to learn about different ingredients and maybe have, you one chapter on gelling agents, another on butter substitutes, and research the ingredients, and then really kind of lay it out and cross link everything, because I do love that sort of looking at chapter 5, 7, and 9, but and then just and have it as a diary almost, so making notes and just exploring foods and how you can get the things you're after, but without the suffering. Sorry, but just, it's because for me, I'm constantly surprised at what you can do with plants, to the point that you wouldn't know, or you wouldn't even care that hasn't got butter in it, or it hasn't got eggs in it. Well, this is actually nicer than some of the kind of animal containing stuff that I've had, and that's like, wow, that's exciting.
Wow, I like that. I'm gonna be definitely checking up on you like when your book is coming out, because I want one.
Yay.
So Rachel, is there anything you would like to express or share before we close?
I think if you're curious about what sex workers want and need, we need to start asking sex workers, instead of creating these bills and these laws and these regulations without consulting with sex workers. And I am not here to speak for present day sex workers. I'm just here to say, listen to these people and listen to my experience, as outdated as it is. We don't all suit your narrative of being broken and abused and exploited individuals. So let's just listen to other people and what they need. And if you really want to get rid of sex work, then you need to get rid of work, because it goes hand in hand. And banning sex work isn't going to do anything except make it more and more and more dangerous. The same as the war on drugs. Banning and prohibition doesn't work. It just creates more harm and more damage, and creates bigger and bigger ripples that we feel, so cannabis is illegal, completely illegal in the UK. So it's called Spice. It's a synthetic cannabis, and people are dying from it. It's really, really messing them up. And it's like the solution is so simple, decriminalize or /legalize when it's around drugs, is the only way a progressive society can move forward. We need to start looking at things in a wholly different approach to the last, several decades, really, of trying to tell people what to do with their bodies, because it doesn't end well. We don't like being told no. Same with this, people kicking off about the mask mandates, even though it's thought to prevent this pretty catastrophic illness, we still don't like, I don't want to wear a mask, it's my freedom. We just don't like being told what not to do. It's just, so let's be a bit more forward thinking, open-minded, respectful. Start inviting sex workers into the room if you want to regulate their bodies.
Thank you, Rachel, for coming on today and being transparent, being open. I know, your past of, being an actor in a porn star has to be hard for you to just openly share vulnerable places of your past in your life. And I sincerely appreciate you taking the courage to come on today. There was a part that was like, I can't have her on my podcast. And I was like, no, I can, because she has a voice and people need to hear what's going on behind closed doors. A lot of people don't necessarily know the details of everything, and people are so quick to judge. And I didn't want anyone else beside you. I mean, you're a perfect example, and give you the opportunity to just share your story and where you're at now with this cooking show. And I believe it's going to blow up. I believe you're going to have a book that's going to sell. You're going to make more money than you did in that industry. And I'm rooting for that. I'm definitely rooting for that, because seeing who you are now, your past does not define who you are now. And I appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story. We do have a comment from Queen Luz that said, "You definitely are brave. Thank you for sharing. People definitely need to hear these things. And you definitely helping people out by sharing your side." So
thank you. That's very kind of you to say. Thank you for having me on and for giving me that, the platform and the space to speak without. We were talking before, and a lot of the documentaries on Netflix and on the BBC, they have an agenda and they have a very set angle, and they, edit and push things into the way they want, and it's not always the truth. So there's a lot of misinformation out there. So anything I can do to help dispel some of that, and to start creating a different future for the younger generations, not only myself and my peers immediately, but in decades, years to come, let's not still be having the same quarrels and nonsense that we're going through now, because it's just so silly, and there's just much more important things to focus on out there, I think, than the moralizing that a lot of us do.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing your story and educating us. We have one question that we ask all our guest speakers. What makes you uncommon?
Sticking my head above the parapet, because I could have walked away and just kept quiet. But I did a lecture in London, talking about my experiences, and before the run up to, I'd convinced myself that someone's going to come and throw acid in my face, like really panic attack kind of. And I did it anyway, because it has to be done, as terrifying as it is and as destabilizing as it is psychologically. It has to be done, and I can't live with myself and not carry my responsibility. If people seem to engage with me when I speak, and they seem to really come away from interactions thinking, I need to find out more about that. So I feel like a duty, like a weight that I have to carry forward, and hopefully lead to change.
Yes, I like that. Yeah. Change. You are the change. You're the voice for the change.
I agree. Well, thank you again, and thank you for our followers for coming on this evening and listening in, and also being educated. I would like to speak on our clothes. You guys have to come check them out. We even got some nice little summer t-shirts, because summertime is coming around, and some men's and our men's apparel as well. You have to go to www.uncommonwomen.net if you have any topics, any potential speakers, or if you want to be a potential speaker, you also have to go back into the website again, www.uncommonwomen.net. Next week's speaker will be recording next June 10th, and she will be sharing her testimony. And as well, before I forget, make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube, okay? And if you missed, just in case if you didn't come on, you can go on there, check out a video again. And you definitely got to check out her video again, because this is very important, and it's a great education. And stay uncommon, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.